Yeah, he will. He's doing his first pro show.
Yeah. And I went to Malaysia last year. We did the Universe show there, and it's incredible. So that place in bodybuilding is growing, and we've got WFF there, affiliated with government and that sort of thing. So I think it's like how IFBB is kind of the first choice.
Yes. Oh, really? Okay.
WFF's like the first choice in Asia. So last year we had 385 athletes at.
Wow.
That's
That's as much as the IFBB Worlds. I think they had with the crossovers, they counted some athletes twice. It was just shy of 500.
Okay.
So that's a big number.
No, we had 300, but without crossovers, this was 385, and then we had 60 pro athletes along. So it was a long day.
That's awesome.
But it was world-class event, sure. It was really well done. And also the guys promoting it, they're not afraid to spend money. So it's guaranteed to be like something good. And it's so typical of like the Asian people where they want to go one better and always go one better. So we had the Universe, which is our sort of premier show. So they want to do something where they call it the Omniverse.
Of course.
Still like,
of course, yeah.
What you're doing is not good enough. but they're making it a festival, so it'll include other sports as well. So
that's so awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. So we are live. So Lyle Singh.
Great.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. The whole premise of this is lessons in hindsight, and what Rob and I and Caleb behind the scenes are trying to do is chat to meaningful people, right? And then not weirdly enough, it's when we ask people who to refer, your name has come up often.
Oh, shit, thank you.
So
appreciate that.
I think that's testament to you. I mean, just an anecdote to start. I remember, and we'll get into it, you president of the WFF in South Africa, which is a bodybuilding federation. I was quite keen to come compete with you, and I just had a very blessed 2024, and I was with another federation, and I ended up winning. And I remember you messaged me, and you're like, go get your Protea colors, don't worry about competing at my federation. And that's just tantamount to the caliber of man you are, because that's pretty unheard of in the bodybuilding industry in South Africa. It's you stick to one federation, you do it. Yeah. So, dude, thanks for being on here.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I knew at the point you're at, and I was also there at a point when, and you were on the verge of such an incredible experience, and everyone should have that experience. I wanted you to have that with a guilty-free conscience, and just to be able to do that with peace of mind, and bodybuilding. The stage is open to you at any point, and like with us, we have a open door policy, so you're welcome to come at any points, So there's never a limitation on that.
Well, that's why it's grown so much under your steer.
Yeah. So just to say, so I'm actually not president of South Africa, but I'm the international director for the Pro League.
So the president of SA reports into you?
No. It's actually separate. So like the Hindsight Stradom, who is our national president, she's actually president of Africa as well. So they are all sort of largely concerned with the amateur divisions, and then once they go into the Pro League, then they kind of fall under the Pro umbrella. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool distinction. So, I mean, I sent you some questions. We'll stick to them. They're a guideline, and it's really just to maximize what we can out of this. I kind of went through that breakthrough in my life where I used to ask myself, if I met myself today from 10 years ago, would I be proud of the person I was or am? Mm-hmm. And what advice would I give myself in the past? So you're quite established business, family, you've got your extramural activities now, so you're kind of, a lot of people are going to look at you, young guys are going to look at you and say, that's the epitome of success.
Sure, thank you.
If you manage to go back in time though, like if something stands out, what would you say to yourself?
oh, geez, would you guys be? I know it's a topic for the entire discussion. Would you be upset with me if I said I actually have no idea? Because the truth is, if you had asked me this question last year this time, and you asked me today, the answer would be different. Because I feel like life it's just constantly changing. It's constantly progressing, and I'm constantly learning lessons today. And every year there's new opportunities being presented. Yeah. And those opportunities are changing the way I think. It's changing the way I look at life. It's changing the way, it's changing everything. It's even changing my energy balance. It's changing so many things. So I feel like, there's still so many lessons to be learned in order, and I have to learn them, digest them, and sort of then be able to impart them. But I also feel like, to answer the question somewhat, I feel like I'm at a very serendipitous point in my life now, because my son is 5 years old, and my son Lev, and he's the apple of my eye, and he's my pride and joy. And I often think, like, what do I wish some people had told me at that age? Because at 5 years old, you're very impressionable, and you're at a point where you're discovering life, you're discovering your passions. And I think that's one thing I want for him, and we've placed importance on that from when he was a baby, that we had to discover things that made him happy, and take those whatever it was, and sort of bring that into his daily activities, such that those enjoyments become passions. And then if you can take those passions, hopefully one day will become, a career opportunity, or could turn a passion into a service. And because for me, that's the definition of success, And we've done that with his love for music, because we noticed when he was a baby, he would identify certain songs, and at 18 months old, he would dance to certain music. So he before he could even walk, he would dance. And he didn't even crawl. Actually, he skipped crawling. He went straight to walking. So he danced before he walked. So so there was specific music songs that he would identify, and he would start dancing. So we realized this boy is very musical. So at 3 years old, we found a piano teacher, a classical piano teacher, to come home, and he started lessons at 3, and then he just excelled at it, And within 6 months, he could read sheet music, and he could play jingle bells, from beginning to end. So he adapted very quickly, and he started learning very quickly. So we knew that if something like that, if you're able to absorb it so quickly and be able to practice it so quickly, then that's going to give you a competitive edge in life. So. So we've harnessed that, and he's still to this day going to classical music, But with that, it's also something else we discovered about him, and I knew about myself, and I also wanted to make sure that so let me just answer it this way: I understood his energy, I understand his personality, I understand he was a very soft person, and we had to be very sensitive about the type of person we introduced him to, and the type of people we put into his circle, into his energy space. So we had to find the right teacher. So it took us a long time to find the teacher that had the right energy and that he enjoyed spending time with. So every week it comes to like a Wednesday at 1:00, he knows he's going for piano lessons, and he's excited about it because he gets to see teacher Molly, and he gets to spend half an hour with her, and he loves it. And
you touched on so much there that's so important. And one of the things you mentioned was your definition of success is service.
Yes.
Right? Has that been pervasive throughout your life? Has that evolved? If I went and I spoke to 18-year-old Lyle, and I asked, what's your definition of success? How has that evolved to service now?
Well, I think I've tried various things, after varsity. I've tried. I realized maybe there was like a little bit of passion for I was into a passion for like healthy eating, that sort of thing. So I had a restaurant for a little while, and in that it was a franchise, but I spoke to the franchisees and got them to incorporate a healthy menu, part of the menu. And this was in 2007 when no one was really doing that other than maybe I think it was the Virgin Active cafes. I don't even think Kauai was in there back then, So, and we were able to do like whey protein on the menu with smoothies and that sort of thing. So I kind of went that route, but didn't realize the rest of the industry was it was tough. I wasn't suited towards it. So, but I think that part of life is still evolving. I'm still finding avenues with the WFF because, we get to travel, get to meet new people. You're always discovering and meeting new people and discovering new avenues of where you can channel your passions. So
and what were you pursuing? If I think back to my definition of success, I mean, we grew up in a very difficult household. Not a lot of money, fairly absent father. So my definition of success was independence and money. Right? Like I pursued that. And I thought that would fix or remediate a difficult childhood. Yes. So that's what I pursued. So I could have gone into something of service. My marks were good. I could have done something medical. But I thought, you know what? Who makes money? It's CAs. They work with money, they'll make it. And then that has evolved, right? If I look at what I do now, I've got that little shop that I do that caters, and the vibe and the culture of that store is everyone is welcome. It's not about bodybuilders. I don't care where I meet you in your fitness journey. I don't care what you look like. I was like, and it's so much so that I don't let the guys sell products to them that won't do anything for them. I've told guys to go and buy Future Life because they're not eating enough, rather than sell them a mass gainer. So, but I had to earn that because I thought for a long time money would make me happy, or success, or titles. What were you pursuing, or what did you think? Like you said, okay, Lyle's gonna hit here, then everything's gonna make sense.
What you choose to do also has to reflect who you are, And I enjoy kind of helping people. I enjoy being sort of making a difference, So I always feel like, and actually something that Mario van Biljon actually taught me is like if you are able to make a difference in someone's life, then you are doing something correct, And that's always been a passion of mine to do something, but it has to be able to make an effect, make a difference in somebody's life, in a positive way.
But I think also it's our structures, human beings, as we're made to serve. We were made to serve God.
Yes.
And whether you look at it in any religious format, your purpose is to serve God. And that is your purpose, is to serve. Yes. And if you do not follow your purpose of service, you will not find that fulfillment, joy, and peace.
Absolutely.
Because happiness is just a fleeting, it's a momentary thing. It's everyone. If you're going to pursue happiness, you're going to be exhausted. That's a dopamine rush you cannot maintain. So I think a lot of people need to also.
It's even the idea, I mean, so it's weird. See, we're part of the church, and the stats, and I need to validate them, but they're saying that a lot more people are finding their ways back to Christianity and church and religion. And I think it's got to do a lot with the state of affairs in the world. And there's this idea that people are moving away from being non-believing, so completely, okay, that this is the end of the cosmos, to that, good gosh, I hope there really is something. And another of those ideas is this consciousness, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the idea of consciousness, that, this is our meat sack, right? We're just floating through this world, and we're all part of one. And the idea is that when you serve Rob, when you serve me, you're actually in turn serving yourself and the greater one. And I would say you're quite conscious, quite self-aware. You talk about energy, you talk about almost intuition, right? It's like how you raise your kid. Because the trickiest thing about what I'm finding is, how do I make my son realize that the world is hard and it's unfair, because I've got to raise him in the world we're in, right? I can't raise him in the world I want him to be in. I've got to prepare him for what he's going to experience today.
Yeah.
But how do I do that in a way that's loving, kind, but at the same time, I don't want him to walk out in the street and just be like, man, this is not the world I saw. How do you balance that?
It's a difficult thing. So with my son, I also try to. So let me answer it this way. So I like going to school. I never really enjoyed school. You know, I always felt a little bit anxious, and I didn't even enjoy the schooling system. And I don't think the schooling system enjoyed me really. You know, so it was just a difficult. It was, but I think in the other day I was driving into school, and I just asked him, like, you know, what. How do you feel when you get to school? Like, how do you feel when you're in class? And, you know, do you feel scared at all? Because obviously I can't talk to him about, like, you know, anxiety and things like that. So he said, no, he feels okay. He says that at one point he felt a little scared, but, you know, he likes his teacher. He's happy. And I said to him, good, because you must never be scared at school. You should never be scared. Like, if you're scared, you come and tell me, and we'll fix it out. If you're scared, you tell your teacher, you know, and she'll help you. Because I want him to grow up knowing that he never has to fear anything. And I'm trying to instill in him that if you have faith in the right direction, you know, you gain strength from that. And I think, you know, one of the lessons I've learned in life, and I would like to teach him, is that one thing that can get you down, especially in this day and age, is opinions, and people's opinions of you, and people's
perceptions
of you. Yeah. So, you know, I always try to keep a circle small of people's opinions that matter, and I keep that within a circle. And I always think that people's opinions of me outside of that is none of my business. You know.
Yeah.
So it's almost you guarding yourself against negative energy, you're guarding yourself against negative opinions, you're guarding yourself against you know, things that doesn't matter. So, you know, it sounds like, I don't know if that answers your question, but I want him to understand that from a young age, that he doesn't fall, you know, he doesn't get affected by kids at school who say nasty things. And
no, well, it does. It does. It's this idea of being intuitive, so understanding that there are stimuli that we can't all process.
Yes.
Right? There's things going on. There's energy that people let off. That intuition.
Yes.
But then also being intentional about how you process that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the one thing I often say is, as I get older, I realize I need to validate my intuition less and less, because I get to push my ego aside.
Yes.
You know, so I'll go and I'll meet someone and I'll just be like, yeah, I really don't like that guy. I really don't want to do business with him. I don't think, but let me, you know, maybe I'm just being anxious, or maybe something. And I found my younger self had to quantify and validate that. Whereas now I'm quite happy saying, you know what, I don't want to spend time with these people, or I don't think this is healthy for us. And that's not always the easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? And back to your son, like the other thing you've got to, I mean, you're speaking very emotionally, like openly emotionally. Right?
Yes.
I don't know if you were raised that way, if you could speak freely about your emotions.
Not really.
Not. Yeah.
No.
So that's also something you had to break the generational curse.
Yeah.
Is, you know, the thing I tell young men is, I was like, you're allowed to have these feelings of fear, anxiety, imposter syndrome. You know, you have them, identify where they come from, but don't act on them.
Yeah, and I think at that point, knowledge is your best friend. You know, and and identifying why you feel a certain way, addressing it, and then kind of dealing with it is how you grow spiritually and in sort of your, you know, you go to a better psychological place as well by just understanding why certain things happened and processing it and then kind of moving forward from it. You know?
Rob's got such a cool polarizing view on anxiety. He reckons it's all self-induced.
Not all self-induced. I've got 3 pillars of anxiety in my head. The first one is, you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. You're worried about getting caught.
It's true. Yeah.
So that's your first pillar.
Yeah.
The second one is you're ill-prepared. So you're not prepared for what's coming through in your near future, be it, you're writing an exam or you're going into a meeting, you have no idea what you're talking about, you're going to feel anxious. But if you are prepared for said meeting, said exam, you're excited for the result because you're excited about what it's going to bring, etc., etc. So excitedness and nervousness kind of goes, but anxiety is on the negative scale of, excited.
Yes.
And then you've got the normal reaction to an abnormal situation. Car accident, child runs out in front of a car, you lose a mother instantly, like suddenly your wife falls ill, you get diagnosed with cancer. There are not unnatural, but things that don't happen day to day.
It's a valid body response.
It's a normal reaction to something that's abnormal. Like, your bank account gets hacked and it's cleared out.
Yeah.
That would cause massive anxiety for many people.
Not me. They clear my overdraft.
Like, I mean, you look at every time there's a Wall Street crash. How many people are throwing themselves off buildings?
Yeah.
It's not that's normal, but it's an abnormal situation. People they were ill prepared.
Yeah.
So there's that, but it's an abnormal situation. I mean, as I get older, I realize that it's going to happen 16 times in my lifetime, and just be prepared for it. So you can start, and I think it's also where a lot of people spend their energy, is making sure that when the unexpected happens, that you're okay. So, car accident, have insurance, anxiety disappears. Get sick, oh, I've got medical aid. There are so many ways to look after it.
You've also earned that though. You've earned that peace. I mean, you've resolved, you've survived every single bad day you've experienced.
You do. I mean, even with my kids. I mean, like you were saying, you want your child to be happy in every situation. I understand that that's not going to happen.
No, for sure. I get that
mean,
too.
my daughters are 18 and 10.
Okay.
So, I've brought mine up through her teenage years. She phones me now and this boyfriend. She tells me about the boyfriend. And I'm like, yes, I never thought I'd have this conversation. Type thing. If I was a dad to a son, I'd be like, and? Now now I'm sitting there going like, I don't really want to.
Well, it's wonderful that she can talk to you about it. Though.
That's good.
And even with my youngest, I mean, she's got such a good way of reading the room. She knows when to speak, when not to speak.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say she acts out of fear, but she's very respectful.
And she's a healer.
And
if you had to assign, she's an angel. She really is a good spirit.
I think that's an important lesson to teach your children is to just be respectful to everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, when disrespected, stand your ground and stand firm.
Yeah.
And that's where you'll feel fear, is when you have to stand your ground. And that's cool.
Yeah.
Face it.
What you say about being respectful, and that's also a very important lesson. One of life's key lessons for me is that no matter what situation you're faced with, there's always a path of kindness. There's always a path of there's always a kinder option. If you get upset with somebody, you always think like, well, I can let ego take over and sort of, I can scream, I can get angry. Until one day you realize anger is actually a weakness. It's not something that you
do stupid in anger.
Yeah, and there's always a kinder path to sorting out a problem. And that is definitely something I would like obviously want to teach my son. Obviously, within reason, to be a strong person, be able to walk away from situations that doesn't need your energy, but also stand up for yourself when you do need to exert that.
Anger, there's a space for it. I mean, I call it turning the tables in the temple. Jesus going into the temple and flipping the tables. And that's righteous anger. There's certain places where you are 100% warranted to be angry. Someone snatches a purse out of someone's hand. I'm not going to be the passive, shame, he's hungry.
They needed it.
They
needed my Versace
I would tip the tables. So I do feel that, I mean, it's definitely an emotional response that's very good to have. I mean, you have that adrenaline rush. It could turn into a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Acting in anger, especially, the thing is we allow our own issues to start affecting our relationships with others. Issues from the first two pillars of anxiety, where it's like, hey, you're bringing this onto yourself. There is no reason for you to be angry with your child. And this is something I learned the hard way with my eldest. I would act out in frustration, and because of stupid things, like she would be 5 minutes late, me waiting at school. I'd be like, my love, could you not hurry? You know, instead of being like, hey, my love, how was your day? You know, I made those mistakes. And thankfully, unfortunately for my eldest, who took the brunt of my lower EQ, eventually I got to a point where I was like, listen, you can't, it's, you know, sometimes you got to get out of your car and go find her and be like, hey, did you die? And she's like, no, sorry, I didn't realize you were there. And I'd be like, I've been waiting for you for half an hour. So I started like, oh no, sorry, Dad, I won't do it again. Rather than the approach of, you know,
everybody's upset.
And then she's crying. You get home, you slam the door. And just,
You know, the biggest evolution for me is if I could go and tell myself something, I really like your approach. I think it takes a very present and grateful man to sit and go, I wouldn't. Everything that I have is a consequence of who I was and what happened to me. And that's Zen. You're very Zen, Lyle. If I could go back and tell myself something, it would be to show others more grace and to show myself more grace. Because I think that anger we don't only limit to other people. I mean, in spite of how hard I've been on myself, you know, I've still kind of got somewhere. If I could have been a lot kinder with myself. And I think that would have been life-changing.
but you don't feel like that drove you to where you are?
Yeah, that is the
like
tough
crack
one.
the whip?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of self-loathing. I mean, you've been in the trenches when it comes to prep.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I mean, you were and are one of SA's best bodybuilders. You were right up there, you know, up on the podium. So you were in the trenches, and you know, sometimes you got to take yourself to a dark place.
Yeah, you know, I think especially this last prep, I think that the hardest part of the prep for me was not looking tired. Was making an effort before I go home to not look tired, to not be tired, you know. And I think, I'm happy I reached that point, because that came with a lot of experience where I had to realize that, you know what, this is my problem to deal with. It's not everyone else's, and I have a responsibility to family now, and I walk through the door. I gotta be happy.
And when how do you prep? So like, were you always disciplined?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So from like a young kid, you'd be like, Lyle's doing that, it's done.
Yeah. So my story is, you know, this like bodybuilding has always kind of been my life, you know, since before I was even fully grown, really, you know. So I remember when I was 12 years old, standing in front of the mirror, like sucking in your stomach and thinking, how cool would it be if I could look like this all the time, you know, and then realizing later on that you could, it'll just take a while, you know. But I think my brother went on a bodybuilding journey, and then I kind of followed him into the gym, and I was 15 years old at the time. I remember it was December 1994. I started training, and then the bug bit, you know, and I think prior to that, I had like bronchial pneumonia a few years before. My lung capacity was a little compromised. I couldn't really progress in the other sports at school. Okay. So, but when I got to the gym, I found something that had a low aerobic intensity, and something I could progress in, you know, and I was just very, very blessed. You know, I was very blessed with very supportive parents. who
Great calf genetics. Don't forget to
my
mention
dad
that.
gave me some good calves. Yeah, he definitely did. Yeah, even up to now. I mean, he's 82 years old and he still, wants to see whose calves are bigger. So anyway, but they really gave me good opportunities. They drove me to gym at sometimes like 5 a.m. before school, so I could get workouts in. And when I was in standard 8, so I'm giving away my age here, but obviously that entire year was obviously my receptors were wide open to like nutrients and all of those things. So I think I put on like 10 kilos, and I went from 65 kilos at 13%, 16% fat to 75 kilos at 13% fat. So obviously it slowed down after that, but in that year I was also very blessed where I had a trainer, and he instilled all the good kind of values in me, and he put me on the right track as to go have the name of Clifford Kutzer, and we trained at a little gym in Westfield, so because this was before health and racket days. So and he told me how to diet, how to train, back then when you're 15 turning 16, that's where all the kids are starting to experiment with alcohol and cigarettes and all those things. And he told me, he says, listen, you're making good progress. So if you smoke, you're going to get fat. If you drink, you're going to get fat. And to this day, I've never done either one of those things. Yeah, so it came from back then. And like I said, my mom would wake up every morning for the remaining 3 years of school, would make me like two containers of like potatoes, chicken, and vegetables every day. So that really helped me out. So I was. So the discipline came very easy for me, and so when I got out of school and moved away, I went to Pretoria to study, and all those things were there. I knew what to do. I knew the whole sort of how to prep food for the rest of the day, and I've lived that life. And yeah, it came with a lot of sacrifice because obviously you can't have as much fun, But I knew why I was doing it. And I enjoyed the fact that I did it. I enjoyed the fact that I didn't eat pizza with my friends every night. I was happy. I enjoyed the fact that I would go out and eat the salad or whatever it is. So so I think the discipline was. I was very lucky with regard to that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I told my mum, I saw a picture of Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
He was lifting a couch and he was vacuuming it. I saw this photo. You remember that one?
Yeah.
I saw it and I was like, I want to do that. And then, I was unlucky. I was a really good rugby player. My colours, not as my national colours, but provincial. And then I hurt this knee when I was 15. And I was like, shucks, I need to do something. So I found bodybuilding. And my mum was like, no, that is disgusting. Big muscles are ugly. And that's the reason. That's how I learned how to cook, because my mom refused. I was like, okay, I need to learn how to cook. But in that, I was, I came from where I felt like I had to establish myself. I had to be something. Mm-hmm. And my aversion from alcohol and smoking is that, my father was a raging alcoholic. So I was like, okay, cool. I've seen what it does. I'm not gonna do it. And then back to Rob's point, it was a lot of fleeing the person I didn't want to be. So there was this fear. So I mean, I don't know what you would say, but I remember I would get to gym at 5 a.m. and be like, "You're useless if you don't do this cardio. You got to do this. You're terrible." That's softened a lot now. I've got a much softer version of how I prep. It's okay. Be the best you. Pursue. Push. You've got more. Like something I always say is earn that rest. Mm-hmm. Did you have to go into the dark place, or were you always like, this is pressure is privilege?
I've been through, I've had to go to the dark place many times because, when I've had to learn many lessons along the journey, and when let's say in 2015, I think it was, I got a second place at SA's, and but we got selected to go to the amateur Olympia in Liverpool.
Yes.
And that was exciting. It was my first trip overseas to compete, and that was amazing. And now because my mind got a little ahead of me, and I was like, now I'm going to compete overseas. I want to be better next year. I have to be better, and I got an American coach, you know. So and this guy, and I wanted to do. I wanted to do the On Classic Africa in 2016 because it was an opportunity to do an international show at home.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, you know what, I have to do this. And fortunately, my wife, I spoke to my wife about it. We were getting married that year, and I said, okay, I'll do the show.
Good news, babe. I'm going to be shredded for the wedding.
No,
Bad news.
So the wedding was in September 24th.
Okay.
Show was in May.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, fine, I'll do the show, and then we'll concentrate on the wedding. And this guy put me on completely the wrong path. You know, increased calories, made me do the most bizarre things, and came to 12 weeks out of the show. And I remember looked at myself, and I couldn't get hold of the coach. I haven't heard from him for 3 weeks, and then eventually I did hear from him. He said, no, just carry on doing what you're doing. 8 weeks out is when we stop. And I know my body. My body is very stubborn. It takes a long time to get lean. So it came to 12 weeks out. I literally went to Justin Thacker, who helped me previously, and I said, listen, like, I'm in a bad place now. I've got to do something. And then that was the most difficult prep. That was a dark place because I had to do cardio 3 times a day. I had to do, like no cardio. It was like 5:30 cardio in the morning, post cardio, evening cardio. And eventually I got to the show, and it was horrible.
You might as well just send you down a mine shaft and give you a pickaxe for 3 times a day.
But you know what? That was the biggest learning experience for me to go to bodybuilding, because I know how hard I had to work to get little result, because I looked really bad. And she, bless my wife, she's always been there to support me, and she put all her needs aside and said to me, listen, I know how hard you've worked. You've come this far. Just carry on. Don't do another show for the year, because essays that year was on the 3rd of September. Okay. She says, okay, fine. Why don't you go towards essays, and essays will be done, and then the wedding will be after, and carry on. But I was so distraught after that finish that I got back. I think the show was the beginning of May. It was on Saturday. I came home the Sunday. I started prep on the Monday, and there was like right back into low carb, like straight right back into it. No like off season, no enjoying yourself, whatever it is. And I was just determined, I have to right the wrong now. And and it came to essays that year. There was such a big change that I won, and obviously then got accepted, got made the world's team. So that means that kind of meant I had to diet all the way through the wedding, which was a little difficult.
Can't have the cake.
No, well, I spoke to Justin about it that day, and we were like, okay, fine. We had a plan. We said, okay, fine. Yeah. No diet from Friday to the Sunday. Like, you don't even think about it. You're enjoying everything. And I remember there was a 3-tier cake at the wedding, and then they put the middle tier in our room. And I can remember Danae woke up the next morning, there was like chocolate cake on the bed and in the hair and all sorts. And I was like, I can't help that.
Yeah, wow.
What did you guys get up to?
No, I did it by myself.
But I talk about this with guys who compete. So it's my first show, and I was like, I hope you place last. I hope your tan runs, and I hope you cramp. And they're like, why would you wish that? I said, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Get it out the way.
Yeah.
Get your worst showing out the way. Mm-hmm. You're going to be judged unfairly. Your tan's going to run. You're going to have a terrible prep. I said, get it out the way.
That's horrible. Imagine I went to any bad guy who comes new to me on a motorbike, and I'd be like, I hope you crash.
Oh, mate. But it used to be like that. Back in the day, I remember my first coach was Hudson. And Hudson, I think I phoned him more than 10 times to get hold of him. And I think he liked that, because he wanted to see how badly people wanted to actually train with them. That was this. It was the spit and sawdust culture we grew up.
Yeah.
But that was, so you've got to get that suffering out the way.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, when I wrote my book, I came across a beautiful Arabic saying, that stuck with me forever. It says, sunshine every day makes a desert. You know, you don't appreciate, I mean, look at every single person is bitching and moaning about the heat. Watch, and I can't wait. Come June, July, everyone's going to be like, oh my God, it's so cold. I can't live in Durban. What is this? And I'm like, there has to be...
Can't live in Durban.
Yeah.
Fuck off to Joburg.
Yeah. But there has to be this up and down. You had to have gone through a terrible prep, a terrible showing to really appreciate that world's call up.
Absolutely. My biggest lessons have always come from not winning.
Yeah.
And I always find the bigger, and I've, and because it teaches you so much about it and how your reaction. And, you know, you talk about ego thereafter, because I always found whenever I came second, always found like you had the option of like letting ego take over, because then you could think about, oh, the judging wasn't right.
Yeah.
I was better. I knew I was better. And obviously family and friends will always tell you, oh, you should have won better.
Yeah.
And then you could choose to believe all of that. Or you could face reality and think, if I was better, it would have been obvious and I would have won, you know, but it wasn't obvious. And even if it was, so it just meant you had to come back.
Yeah.
And work harder and become better, you know. And I think that's something that I think in this day and age and in this bodybuilding climate is missing, because the sport is fragmented a lot.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many different federations and all of that, where people come second nowadays. It's easier to let ego take over, and they can just blame whatever it is, because they know that there's another federation waiting, and they can go compete there and win, or compete somewhere else, and they keep going, you know. So it's not often that you find someone coming back after a loss to improve themselves and come back to you. So when, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a nice segue into chatting about the federation that you've called your own now, and you've popularized an essay.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, you're an absolute stalwart in the IFBB, and I think it's always brave bringing in a new federation. So, I mean, some you'll know this, is that a lot of the federations, even overseas, right? So you can't go to the Olympia unless you compete with a certain federation. And it happens so much that you're actually penalized if you cross federations. So there is this, I mean, and there's always these wars on social media. If you ever feel, I'll send you some of these chats, you'll love them. People getting upset because they use this athlete's image for this and that. And
they said for me that I sit there going,
but it is. You know, sometimes when you get so stuck in the forest, you can't see the wood through the trees. You know, so what I appreciate what you've done is I've been to a couple of shows, and it's very inclusive. It's a very good energy, and it's all welcoming.
Thank you.
You know, that's it's about the bloody athlete. You know, and I think that's what, as athletes, as I've been there before, where I've been in a 25-man deep lineup. You get on stage, you don't make first call out, you're done. 30 seconds.
It should also be about the day. I mean, like,
yes.
if you're all welcoming, and the thing is, if cars are coming from the WBFF and the NABA and
NPC
from NPC and IFBB, be like, welcome.
Yeah.
Like, now you're at the true showdown where you've got everybody.
Correct.
Now you can compare yourself to all federations.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you saying about the fact that there was good energy, because that's, for me, the most critical part of competing. The fact that you get treated well, the fact that you feel safe in a federation, that you know that you're going to be well respected. You know, because for me, you know, the judging and the trophies and the titles is one thing, but it's how you get treated backstage, for me, matters the most. So I'm very specific about making sure that there's a well-mannered person backstage, a patient person backstage who will guide people and not shout at them and not swear at them and that sort of thing. So,
sorry, when you're done. No, there was one federation I helped a girl prep for, and she came to me the day of the show, and she showed me this message from one of the judges saying, we can guarantee you top 3, but you need to perform X, Y, and Z. And I was like...
And let me guess, it wasn't Hamlet.
It wasn't Hamlet.
He didn't want Hamlet performance.
May have involved a flute. But
that's people.
And she was like, what do I do? And I was like, well, if I were you, I wouldn't want to be part of this.
Absolutely.
So fuck the top 3. Because the top 3 get sent over to, I'm not going to say which city because that will give away the federation. But that's how they ran the shows.
But that's people. Like when you put the wrong people.
Yeah, put the wrong people in power, they're going to abuse it.
Yeah, someone always said to me, you will never be disappointed in Christianity, but Christians will disappoint the hell out of you.
Sorry, I laugh only because I always think to myself, like sometimes it comes to bodybuilding, and I always think of how I love bodybuilding. I just sometimes just don't like bodybuilders.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah. I own a supplement store. I can't stand it. And I'm a bodybuilder. Yeah, they're always looking for the cheapest deal. They're always looking for a shortcut. They've got no money because the sport is bloody expensive.
Yeah.
Like it's, you know what matters is people that, I remember someone coming up to me and I was in prep, so I was tired and emotional. I chat to this boy in the gym all the time, and then like 6 months later, I think it was 2 weeks before a show, so I'm really flat. He comes to me and says, 6 months ago you gave me advice and I've lost this much weight. And I was like, oh yeah, great. I remember going to the sauna and crying. I was like, great, this is dehydrating me, this is a good call. But that's what's meaning. This guy wasn't a bodybuilder. He didn't want to be. I've helped plenty of bodybuilders, and they vacuum.
For me, I sat there, I'm just like, I have to discuss one more sexual problem, or how do I increase the size of my biceps? I just got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore.
It's a weird...
Because I've been involved in the industry for 16 years. Yeah. And I've helped a lot of them. But the thing is when they're phoning, it's always about self, And I'm sitting there going, this is so self-centered.
Yeah.
It is sorry guys.
No, it is.
I enjoy the sport myself, but it is so selfish. That's what I found with them, is generally bodybuilders are so selfish.
You're right. I mean, I often say we get most of our recruits in bodybuilding.
From
eating disorders and people that have image issues, right? And then what happens is I find seasons, because I've also been in this for so long. There's seasons where you'll get a bunch of people. Like my 2024 year with the gents then, we went to Worlds, was one of those seasons where the boys loved bodybuilding. And it wasn't about self. I remember us all pooling together and making a plan. Mate, that's one of the best things that's ever happened. I've also been in other seasons where I'm backstage and people are elbowing, and they want to fight with you. And you're just like, it's people. You put them in, I've met bankers in the banking situation.
You're right.
Terrible
Every
people.
single industry has them. 100%. It doesn't matter whether it be in the workspace, sport. I mean, you go play rugby or even soccer.
Yeah.
But I think I probably had more fights in the soccer field than anywhere else.
Why are you fighting with soccer players?
You just tap them on the shin and they fall over and cry until the whistle blows.
But so I mean, you've got that problem, right? And the problem with bodybuilding, and people might see this, oh my God, he hates, but I love bodybuilding. I'm prepping for another show. I love it. I love supporting bodybuilders. But you've got this hierarchy that's built on an aesthetic, which is, I mean, we don't pick the prettiest president, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're an anomaly. You're a beautiful man and you get to be president. Maybe that's how they fixed it. But jokes aside, how do you build a federation? How do you foster a culture of inclusivity and not the self-centeredness?
It starts at the top. So you got to put the right kind of people in charge. You got to put the right and the people who, because people pick up that energy, and it's not just how you speak to people. It's not just how you behave at the shows. It's what you do on social media. It's it's all the little bits of pieces in the stories, and people watch all those things and they form opinions. And if you're representing a federation, you're representing a brand, you got to behave in a certain way, And we're very blessed and fortunate to have we've got Graham Lansfield, who's the world president, and He's 76 years old, and he's an absolute legend. He's an absolute pioneer. He competed with like Arnold Schwarzenegger and things like that back in the day. You know, he's got stories to tell, but he's a leader where he speaks to people, everyone. He'll speak to athletes, he'll speak to judges, he'll speak to presidents, he'll speak to everyone. There's nobody he doesn't have time for, and he flies all over the world. He makes time to go to every single country, because I think the WFF now is probably in over 70 countries, you know, so we definitely be growing. Our biggest strength is our international footprint, and it's through him, because he physically goes and speaks to people, and he puts the right people in place, and he will choose the people who have the right kind of energy, and that energy then filters down, you know. Why we were talking earlier about Malaysia, you know, because I would suggest anybody go to Malaysia, because I know the people there, they will go out of their way for their athletes, and I know that the people they put backstage and the people they put at the weigh-in are all good people. They're calm, they're happy, they're patient, you know, they're respectful, and I think that's what we're all about, you know. And we don't have rules that discriminate or exclude in any way. So we just say to everyone at our athletes meetings, like, listen, you guys are welcome from this point to go compete wherever you want to compete and come back whenever you want to come back. You know, so even if for whatever reason there's no hard feelings, whatever you choose to do, like, and
it's about the day.
It's about the day, yeah, exactly. And you know, even with regard to how I operate things on the pro league, on the pro side of things. If you don't mind me changing the topic a little bit.
No, of course. Yeah.
So, you know, I don't see myself as being like sort of in charge of everyone, but I see myself as an athlete now having the opportunity to ensure that every pro athlete has the experience that I would like to have at every show that they go to. So I have put certain things in place and busy putting certain things. So Graham and I have worked very closely together to change certain things. We've put in more divisions, so such that, you know, when more bodybuilding divisions, so that the people who get their pro cards in the lighter categories immediately can be competitive. Nice. You know, so we've catered for a lot more. We've kind of doubled the platform for bodybuilding, and we've created a whole new identity with new logos, new slogans. And we've put event management documents in place where event manager has to have the prize money, cash in hand, and has to award the money on stage in cash. So there's no such thing as, you've won $500, we'll give it to you later tomorrow, and it never comes. You know, so it has to be done there and then. So what you promised you is what you get. And we also we make sure that you know, the standards are met. You know, we make sure we're in a venue that's air conditioned. We make sure that the lighting is always good. We make sure that it's in a first world country. You know, our universe shows are like, last year was Malaysia, the previous year was in Las Vegas. Then we were, you know, in there was South Korea. There was the Philippines. There was also, you know, the list goes on. So, and I think the part of our strength is, like I said, our global footprint, but for the fact that you get to travel the world, and you get to, like, as a pro, you get to pick. If you've got 30 shows in all over the world, you get to pick a country that you've never been to and say, take your family, let's go have this experience and compete and do what you like to do.
Get there shredded.
Yeah.
I think that's...
Going to a beach holiday, looking like the best you've ever looked.
And you know that holiday after a competition is the best holiday you've ever had.
Oh, mate.
Especially after the refeed.
Yeah.
Because you look the best. You actually look better the day after than the day on the stage for some weird reason, especially in photos.
Yeah. And then this year we managed to, we're very proud because we've got the world champs coming to Africa. So we've got world champs in Cameroon. In July, so we're very happy about that. So, yeah. And the Cameroon guys are amazing. Jeez.
Massive.
No, they're...
I mean, when you go into the north, I've seen a couple of athletes come down when we had the Arnolds here. They are massive men, massive humans.
No, dude, Dal.
And interesting story is that our Cameroon president, so he's the head of security for the national president, so he's quite high up.
Okay.
So he's got a lot of resources available to him, and he can make so like if he tells me, like, if he's driving along and he sees a construction worker who looks massive, he'll stop the car and says, "Listen, do you go to a gym?" And he says, "No." He says, "Come with me." And they'll arrange gym membership,
program.
arrange programs for him, arrange food and
Talent scouting.
all that.
Yeah.
But that's the level of genetics that you have there. It's like you just randomly find these really massive guys.
I found that out to another degree when we went to Iran, and how prestigious it is to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
To be a champion bodybuilder is probably, if I had to equate it to South African terms, is being a Springbok.
Springbok captain, yeah.
Yeah. So the drive there to have bodybuilders is, one, they're getting salaried. These guys were full-time salaried bodybuilders. Yeah. Unheard of. They got paid everything. We had to pay to go to Worlds. We had to buy our own kit. And yes, we got it subsidized by IFBB, and it's such a cool experience. It's well worth paying for. But there's a reason none of us placed top 3 in the world. Those athletes are professional athletes. They have a team coach. It's a whole different dynamic.
It's an obsession.
Well, it's a sport. It's a sport that's condoned. And the guy who won my lineup, Iranian guy, he got 8,000 euros from the government for winning. Well done. Right?
1,000 euros.
I'm telling you now, you turn bodybuilding into a remunerated sport. You're going to get guys. Think about the heyday. Ibn Etzebeth, he had a choice. He's a giant of a man. He could have done whatever he wanted in terms of sport. Growing up culturally, the most prestigious thing that an ultimate athlete could have been was a Springbok. So that's what he pursued.
In this country? Yes.
Yeah. So, Jesse Creel. I've seen him training at Leloucha.
Tell us a machine.
3 weeks from a show.
3 weeks from winning any IFBB Pro.
He could have gone into bodybuilding. He's a peak athlete. He's done. And that's another question. You've got this growing division in South Africa. How do you increase the popularity?
It's something that it's a difficult thing. It really is a difficult thing. And the truth is, we honestly try our best with advertising and social media and all that, but I just feel that we are an experience, so we have to provide that experience. We hope that it's word of mouth and people will enjoy the experience and come back. We always say to people that you compete wherever you like to compete, but if you feel that this is your home, we will welcome you back.
Yeah.
And we hope that that's the way we can kind of grow our sport, where if we provide an experience that's good enough, word of mouth will spread, and we will get that, because it's so difficult nowadays where you have so many federations operating, because you come to, we've got to choose a team for world champs, so we got to have we got to do a show roughly about 8 weeks before to allow for application time for visas and all of that, and then so we got to have it let's say it comes to like September. And you come to September, you look at the calendar, and you can't find a date where you don't have another federation doing another show. So that makes it very, very difficult to grow the sport. So
it's the same date.
No, we try not to do that. We really try our best not to do that.
Yeah, it's done before. It actually both shows suffer.
Yeah. Because we like to give people the opportunity to to come to us.
Yeah.
From somewhere else if they choose to, So, and it's just difficult because for the past few years we've always had another show on our date. So it's a difficult one. But like I say, we just trying to do what we do best and hope that word of mouth spreads that way. You know?
And your growth internationally and locally, is that, how much of that is an increase in popularity of bodybuilding versus nicking what's already market share?
You know, the problem isn't. It's not a problem, but internationally, there's a lot of diversity in the bodybuilding shows with constantly new categories coming in, and we've had to address that, and we've had to bring in certain categories now with that, and we introduced something called the Warrior lineup this year, where you dress up as a warrior of any type of tribe member or whatever it is you want to dress up as a that resembles some form of warrior, but but the bodybuilders kind of shine at that, because they're the ones that look most warrior-like and look most soldier-like.
You get a lot of Spartans.
Yeah. So we that's one of the ways we're trying to kind of grow the sport without having to increase if you're trying to attract attention of the bodybuilders without sort of promoting bodybuilding as such, because there's a lot of migration from bodybuilding to the sports models and the men's physique, and then.
And I like those. A lot of hardcore bodybuilders, especially from our era, are very anti these new divisions. And if we think about bodybuilding, when I got into it, I had pretty good genetics, right? I was also injured, so I couldn't really do other sports that I would have preferred. And the barrier to entry was you actually had to be big in your first show. Now that's hard for a lot of people. So these board shorts divisions, the fit model divisions that the guys have with the blazer, a lot of people, I think it's cool. I think it's nice for a guy to go on stage, experience a bodybuilding show, because what inevitably happens is you train, you get bigger, you get more
walk
conditions.
on stage looking like a Chippendale.
You see, this is the problem. He is the problem.
In a suit.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So it just doesn't sound like bodybuilding to me.
There
it sounds like Chippendales.
There you go. Thanks.
I'm just giving you my honest
almost
opinion.
as if we choreographed this. No, but I agree with you. It's not, right? And it's not supposed to be painted. What I love about it is that...
So you're turning it into a beauty pageant.
But that's what it is.
It is.
A hardcore bodybuilder, you go tell the guy, all you're doing is posing and prancing around on the stage, man. So I like these new divisions. I think it lowers the barrier to entry, and you get people to come to shows and see what it's about. And then what happens is they'll see a guy like you, right? They'll see a guy like me, and they'll go, flip, that's real. And maybe in 3, 4, 5 years' time, I can jump up categories. So I like it. I think it's a great way to increase popularity.
Yeah, and so we've got this the jeans model. So
yes.
it's pretty much the novice category. So it's like before you even get to bodybuilding, and it's just a very well presented guy with muscle tone, no striations, and it's not.
It's more aesthetic.
Yes. Yeah.
But in Asia, that category probably had about 40 guys in the lineup.
Really?
It took forever to judge that lineup, and it's so difficult to judge.
Yeah.
But that's the popularity, and also, being a global federation, you also have to think about the genetic structure of the people in that area.
Wow, okay.
So you think of Asian people; they're very small structured.
Yeah.
So
Massive calves.
massive calves.
Yeah.
Like the Chinese belt.
Yes.
Their legs.
That's true. I understand.
But you're right, they're slight of build.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
But you go in southern India and they've got no calves.
yeah.
No, then you go North Africa, and the guys are like tanks.
Giants.
Even the Russians. Russians are immense humans.
But also I think that is very much attributed to genetics through generational dieting.
Absolutely.
Because you
And
look at an
workload.
African man,
Wow.
he is built for strength. You look at every fighter, they absolutely dominate anything physical, fast, Olympics. They dominate any sprinting. It's because, and also you think about it, they live in the middle of Africa, away from the coasts. Their diet is mostly red meat, and generationally so.
Yes.
Yet you go down China, that whole belt down there, and they're all about soy, amigos, fish, and we'll
Their
mathematical computing is because of just, it's how it is.
Well, there's that book written by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks about how your genetics follow you 3 generations. So they would find a 3rd generation Chinese person in America. They gave the kid the puzzle. The Chinese kid would work on the puzzle 6 minutes longer than a Caucasian kid. And they trace that all the way back to that a rice paddy has to be worked 360 days a year. So your genetics, the work ethic flowed through your genetics. It's incredible. So, and I mean, but how do you judge a guy that's slight of build, but super shredded, versus a guy that's a tank?
But that, and we have that often, and that's why the criteria is so important, especially like internationally judging, because you can have a guy that's smaller, completely shredded. I mean, there's not an ounce of fat, and you can tell he's left no stone unturned, But he's standing next to somebody who maybe not as conditioned, but conditioned enough, but just structure with massive shoulders, bulbous muscle bellies, big legs, small waist. And I think that's the biggest telltale sign is like the guy who's shredded has got a much wider waist.
Yes.
So, and you have to tick the boxes according to what the criteria asks for. So if the criteria asks for proportions, symmetry, and the golden rule that Graham has always taught us with international judging is that you always go with the person that has the best genetics and least number of faults. And that's probably how we would assess it, So, but then obviously with that you can't ignore conditioning. So we wouldn't ever give it to somebody who's not in winning condition. But but structure and genetics it carries you through. Unfortunately, it's the key. And just to carry on with what I was saying earlier, if you look at the bikini divisions, like if you look at European and South African, and you look at South American, it's completely different. Yes. So that's why we created it's actually called Latino wellness, or Latino sort of where you cater for people who are.
They call that wellness in NPC.
Yes.
I think IFBB, that's just your Latino lower half.
You need to rock up on stage with
2 C's.
with bum.
With the bums. Yeah.
Whereas you have the Europeans, I mean, every time their bikini girls looked like our fitness girls. They were hard.
Yeah.
There was.
Yeah. I remember going to Worlds in Hungary. It was the women's Worlds, and you go and you see like the Polish girls or the Eastern European girls. They are tiny. God looked like he took a template and he went, next one, They were tiny, tiny waists, incredible full muscle bellies. And it's completely genetics. No one's got a waist this small and shoulders this big.
Yeah, you said it's the telltale sign of it's what you work with what you're given with, So, but absolutely no disrespect to the guy who came second, and that's why I talk about winning, because to the guy that came second, to him that's a win, because he did everything he could, and that's the best that he could have looked, and he worked with his genetic potential, explored everything to its peak,
Bodybuilding, the sanity you earn, because you have to earn it. You'll go through a couple of shows and you'll think that gold is winning. But the real win is, what was your previous showing and did you better it? Because you cannot control who rocks up at a show, right? You're not going to run your best time. You're not going to lift your heaviest weight. You get there and whoever looks the best. And hopefully if you improved on your last showing, that's it. That's your win.
Yeah.
That's the only sanity you can get.
You're better than you were last year.
Yeah. Because, when I started bodybuilding, it's like the only thing I knew was what you could see.
Yes.
Because back then there wasn't even bodybuilding magazines locally. There wasn't, obviously the internet was barely around, so there was, bodybuilding from what you saw at the gym and what you saw at KZN Champs. That was it. You look forward to going to KZN Champs. I'd been going to KZN Champs since 95, up until when I competed for the first time in 2011. You know, so, and you know, every year you always look forward to seeing. You saw who competed one year, you look forward to seeing them the next year. You know, so it was seeing great names like, you know, obviously Chris Pillay, and then it was like Ari Nicolopoulos.
Yes,
There was Justin Thacker, Mario Van Bullion, there was Andrew Hudson, there was Naeem Ali, you know,
Mario.
Yeah, all of those guys. You know,
Marius.
Don.
so when I got the opportunity to enter, you know, a KZN, it was like a dream come true for me. And that's because that, for me, that was always been my goal.
Yeah.
And then I came second 4 times before finally won, you know. So that was a big lesson for me, because it was. And I was
to you for not giving up.
Yeah, it took me 11 years to win essays.
Jeez, yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Only.
Yeah. Took the fast route.
Yeah.
So now, an organic change to your lifestyles. Obviously, you've gone from bodybuilding to what some would say is completely, wow, of course, that's what he went into, horse riding.
Yeah,
Right?
it's
So
a
you
new
were like,
passion of mine, yeah.
I've got massive legs and calves. You know who's going to enjoy this? Is a horse. So how did you get into that?
You know, so I last competed obviously 2021. And since then, I've had quite a few injuries. You know, I've torn a cartilage in my knee, had to have surgery, and then had to rehabilitate myself, lost muscle on one side. I've come back to it. But, you know, since then, you know, business and family and everything kind of came first, you know. So, and for me to be able to compete, I got to train harder than my previous prep. And until that point, I'm not, I know I can train harder than I did previously. I know I'm not ready to get back on stage, and I'll never give up on the bodybuilder inside of me. Will always be alive, you know. So, but I wanted to do something that was physical, and where I got to experience outdoors, and I got to connect with animals, you know, because just I love. I mean, I'd much rather spend time with an animal than any human, you know, except for my family.
Yeah.
So that it really, and I used to ride quite a lot. About 20 years ago, my friends, we used to go on the weekends. So I was familiar with it, and I was, you know, so eventually I found a school up in Salt Rock at Oakland's Equestrian Stage, you know, so, and got into it, and you know, the bug just bit, because the similarities between horse riding and bodybuilding is incredible, you know, so. Because it's because bodybuilding for me, and it's difficult because I don't like calling it bodybuilding really, and I don't actually have a name for it, because it takes a lot more than physical strength. There's a mental aspect to it. There's a spiritual aspect to it, and
there's a self-discovery.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's more than often until, you know, obviously you know that I had 2 of my training partners that were my best friends, you know, and they both passed in 21. And I only up until recently did I find a new training partner. So I've been training by myself all this time, and during those times I would pretty much put noise cancellation headphones in, and where I would isolate myself and just be alone. And it was a really magical, very peaceful, very healing time for me, because I could, you know,
spend time with yourself.
To spend time with myself, listen to a podcast, to, you know, spend some time learning things or whatever it is, and but I think it got to a point where I wanted to have an experience outside of that, and I also wanted to do something with my son. You know, so we decided to go up there, and we started doing lessons together. You know, and he rides a little pony this big, and he loves it, absolutely loves it. He looks forward to it every week. And I started lessons, and then I started actually going through the week, so because I wanted to progress. And, you know, with horse riding, there's the English style, and then there's the Western style. The Western style is sort of the barrel racing and all of that. So I'm trying to focus on that, and hopefully one day become competitive on that side of it, you know, because it's such an incredible feeling, because, like I said, it's similar to bodybuilding, because with bodybuilding, you got the mind-muscle connection.
Yeah.
And it's like, so if you're doing a bench press, for example, you got to sit. You got to align your back. You got to put yourself in the right arch. You got to align your shoulder blades. You got to put your elbows in the right position, and you got to engage the weight. Then, of course, there's the eccentric movement. There's maximum contraction. There's concentric movement. There's time under tension. There's all these things that you have to consider, and it has to be done perfectly in order to be executed perfectly. You know, so it's the same thing with horse riding, because you get on the horse and you got to be in a very specific mental space. And you got to be very calm, and you actually have to connect to the horse. You got to understand, because the horse listens to you. It follows your eyes. It literally does what you want it to do. So you got to establish that connection, and then on top of that, you also gotta master your position. You gotta find the optimal position, to ride, where you got to focus on where your heels, your hips, your earlobes, or everything's got to be one straight line. You got to keep yourself in one position, and then and you got to use your core. You got to use your legs. You got to use your body to keep yourself aligned and keep yourself still and keep yourself in that position. And that's very difficult. So if you're going for an outride, it's not as bad. But if you're doing arena work where we're learning new disciplines, I mean, you could burn up to I think the other day during my weight workout, I burned 400 calories. But during the same amount of time in the arena, I burned up 750 calories.
And how's it? So we've got the yes/no machines in the gym.
Yeah.
How was the feeling in your inner quads after good horse riding?
Yeah, it's incredible because it hurts, but the trick is it shouldn't really, because if you're constantly tensing yourself all the time, you're actually doing it incorrectly. So you got to find a comfortable position where you're not tensing, but you're just kind of engaging everything. But as you're riding, you kind of have to.
Can you get him on a motorbike?
Yeah, he's trying to kill all his. He's trying to kill everyone. He's trying to get me on a motorbike.
I understand. It's also stress and strenuous. Yeah, I completely understand.
No, not the stress and strenuous. You want fun.
He loves
you like one horse. I like having a couple.
500, yeah. That's awesome, dude.
But
I mean, that's such a cool transition, and it is. I often ask if success and these disciplines are transferable in what you do. I mean, you'll take business, you'll take family, and a lot of them are, and it's got a lot to do with this self-awareness and this consistency and perseverance.
No, I think the lessons that you learn through bodybuilding, you can carry through any discipline in life. Because like I say, I started bodybuilding at a very young age, so I got that idea of how hard it is to achieve a goal. The amount of effort you have to put into achieve a goal, how much sacrifice you have to put into achieving something, and I carry that and never giving up. That's just not an option.
Enjoying the process.
Enjoy the process, exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you gotta. Only recently, I think it must have been me this year or last year, I learned that sometimes you have to slow down to get further. Because before it was always the pursuit of perfection. You gotta go, and you ignore.
It's the philosophy of Wu Wei.
Yes,
which is a philosophy of you plant the seed and you must now leave it. You must wait. You cannot water it anymore. You cannot fuck with the soil. You must just leave it.
Yeah.
You cannot throw any more sun at it.
Yes.
If you hold it.
You Rob would. He would flip it.
Fucking come there. Yeah. And then you end up cooking it.
We've got probably a minute.
Sure.
Max 2 minutes left.
Sure.
And I think the one cool closing question I saw here was, in your darkest times, right, when you remember those times, and if you had to tell someone or your past self, help them pull them out of that situation, what is a little bit of advice?
If you're in a dark time, I always remember thinking that, God will never put you in a position He doesn't think that you're strong enough to be in. So always have faith in that, and always be sure to live in faith and not fear.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a dark situation, you know, and you have faith that it's going to get better, it will get better. But if you fear of getting it worse, chances are it's going to get worse, because you're putting that energy into it getting worse, and it's supposed to putting positive energy into it getting better.
Yeah.
So I think it's just having to live in faith, not fear. Will probably get you out of whatever situation you're
powerful. And it's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah. It's really easy. I always say, a lot of my friends are getting in relationships, and I'll say, find out what your fight language is, because you spend very little time being in love. You spend a lot of time going through suffering.
Yeah.
So if you can have faith in hard times, the easy times are good. When you're making money, when your family's happy, when you're in good health, it's good to have faith. Grateful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when times are dark, you've just got to sit there and go. And I pray forward. So I always say, thank you, God, for delivering me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because He has. I just haven't, I'm not there yet. The plan is there. He just hasn't shown it to me. So.
Yeah, shame. You know, I feel I probably might be one of your more boring guests because I don't have the dramatic backstory. Because I always think that, you know, I've been blessed from a very young age with a wonderful family, and I've been blessed with with a really wonderful and supporting wife, who I think is my greatest blessing. You know, you've seen her; she's been there. She's done all the tans.
No, you ordered off from heaven. I've met her. She's not human. Angel.
Thank you. Yeah. And then obviously she's given me my greatest gifts, which are my kids.
You know the coolest thing about you, Lyle, is that I've never ever met anyone that has something bad to say about you. I promise, and I've met some real arseholes. Yeah. I'll have you know, like, you know, this guy. No, I'm joking. I promise you know, and that doesn't mean your story is boring, but I've really, like, you are held in such high regard and revere.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. And that's not because you've flitted about. That's intentional. So don't apologize. This was so cool, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you know, it's like I said earlier, I think we touched on it. You just try and always be kind to everybody, and I enjoy that. I enjoy being kind to people. You know, you know, like for me, even with bodybuilding, you know, with the shows, even though that I don't enjoy being up in front, I don't enjoy being sort of the face of things. But my favorite part of the show is weigh-in, where I get to physically weigh in the guys, but I get to shake their hands and look at them, and because they come down, they're upset and all of that, and I get to shake their hands and say, "How are you? How you? What is your name? How are you? How are you feeling?
So
you know, you're looking great." And then they literally, I mean, they see you actually able to connect, and they smile, they're happy, you know.
Yeah, it means something to them.
Yeah, and those are the moments that I really enjoy about the sport, you know. So that's
but
thank you.
No, this was awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Nice.